Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Stories on the Rooftop. We are delighted to have you here with us today, especially on International Women's Day. My name is Fareen Virani, and I am board member for the Arts and Culture portfolio of the Aga Khan Youth and Sports Board. Stories on the Rooftop is a platform for sharing personal experiencing and engaging in open dialogue with each other. We are delighted to have Pinky Lilani, an author, a motivational speaker, a food expert, a women's advocate. She is the founder and chair of several awards recognizing influential women and leaders. Pinky was born in Calcutta and in 1974 graduated from Calcutta University with an honors degree in education and English. In 1978, she moved to the UK, where she started her cookery career and published Spice Magic in 2001. Pinky was appointed an OBE in 2007 for services to charity and a CBE in 2015 for services to women in business. Now, before I hand over to Pinky, I just want to run through a few logistical points. Pinky will start by sharing her story, and then we'll have time for questions. You can ask your questions by typing in the chat box. At the end of the session, we will have a short evaluation survey, which we would appreciate if you could all complete. Please all do switch on your videos if you feel comfortable to do so, and put your display name as your real name. It is always nice to see faces and know who everyone is. Finally, as I mentioned, Stories is about sharing personal experiences, and we want to have a safe space for everyone to be able to share their views. So please be respectful when sharing your questions and your comments. With that, I would now like to hand you over to Pinky to begin. Thank you so much, Pinky, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Fareen, for inviting me to speak here today. I'm so honored and privileged to be here, especially on International Women's Day. I must confess, I'm rather tired by this time because this is the 5th speech I'm giving. I actually began last night when Rachel Johnson asked me to be on her LBC show. And so counting that is 6, and we've done a whole lot of recorded messages, but this one gives me the most pleasure. Because before I begin even, I would like to say that if I stand on the shoulders of giants, it's because of the amazing people in the Jamaat who've helped me on my journey. So I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. Fareen, thank you so much for taking the risk. You're obviously a gambler, but now I realize you said stories on the rooftop. Well, actually, this is stories from a couch potato, because all I've done over the last year is be a couch potato. But I also realize that I'm just the warm-up act for something much bigger. At 9 o'clock, we have the big Oprah show. So I'm just the warm-up act for that. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'd really like to start by sharing with you what is my mantra. Now, I have a mantra, and that mantra is, you have not lived a perfect day unless you've done something for someone who can never repay you. And so it's really enveloped with kindness. And how can I do that every single day? So every day in non-pandemic times, I actually walk around the streets of London with a bag of gold chocolate coins and give them out to anybody who's kind to me. So, somebody who smiles at me on the train or a receptionist. So that's my kindness done. But going on to what my story is, diversity is high on the agenda in the UK now. We're hearing so much of that. And I can tick all the boxes. I'm a woman, I'm an ethnic minority woman, I'm a Muslim woman, and I'm disabled. And you may wonder in what way I'm disabled. Well, when I was in the council in the 90s, I developed quite a serious hearing problem. So I'm actually profoundly deaf and had very little of my hearing. And I tell people that up front, because sometimes when they ask me a question, I give a totally doolally answer. Like the time when somebody asked me, how long does it take you to make a curry? And I heard, how long have you been in the country? So I said, 40 years. She said, well, we're not coming to your house for dinner. So, that is something that I share with people at the start. Now, I came to England 40 years ago when I met my husband and married him in 3 weeks in India. He had done no due diligence whatsoever. He thought he'd got a good Indian wife who could cook. Sadly, I couldn't cook at all because I was so lucky. I came from a family that had one of the best chefs in Calcutta. So it's been a very interesting journey, not knowing how to cook, coming to a country where I knew absolutely no one. And to think my life really now revolves around two things: it's people and food. One of the first questions I was asked when I came to the country was, being a good Indian Muslim woman, do you walk two steps behind your husband? To which I'd always say, no, I walk 10 steps behind him so he doesn't know what I'm getting up to. I think I've kind of increased that. So, how did I really start? I had my children and didn't really want to work. I had no aspirations of working at all. But I learned to cook because food was important to me. I love having people over to my house. So anybody who's in Pearly and wants to come and have lunch with me, you're always welcome. And after I learned to cook, I remember inviting loads of people. And one of the women who I met said, you know, you cook really well. Would you like to teach cookery to adults? We'll pay you £11 an hour for 2 hours. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. Somebody's going to pay me for something. So I agreed to very heartily and would go along to the cookery session full of enthusiasm and energy, very little expertise, with my masala dabba, the spice box, and teach them how to cook. Well, one of my pupils was from Sherwoods, and she said, would you do some consulting with us? And I said, of course I will. I never say no to anything. You know, they say fools rush in where angels fear to tread. So I started doing consulting for Sherwoods and then for Tesco's. And then everybody said, why don't you write a book? So I thought, oh my God, that would be really cool. I was too lazy to find a publisher, so I actually self-published. And when these thousands of books came to my house, they were delivered, I had nowhere to keep them. So I had to sell my car, buy a little car, and put them in the garage. And after selling the first 100 books, I didn't know what to do with all these books. So I started really having to think very deeply and be creative. And they say when we die, most of us have only done 30% of what we're capable of. So I had to think very hard, what should I do and be creative? So I started ringing up all the bookstores and saying, I've written a book. How many copies would you like? Would you like to sell some? And they'd ask you a couple of questions. Are you a celebrity? Have you been on television? And basically, when I said no, there was no interest. So then I came up with this idea that if I bring my electric wok into the shop and cook spicy Bombay potatoes in 5 minutes, would you let me sell my book? And I think one of them saw the desperation, heard the desperation in my voice and felt sorry for me and said, yes, yes, that'll be fine. We'll let you do that. We'll even serve some wine to everybody who comes. And so I went along, and the smell of the garlic and the coriander got everybody to come. They could see how easy it was. And the book started flying off the shelves. So I started traveling all around the country in my car with my spice box, my wok, and my book, selling these books. And just a tip for anybody who ever wants to do that, the best place to go to when you want to sell anything and talk to people is the American Women's Club. Because I went to them. When you went to a British Women's Club, everybody would buy one, some would buy no books. But the American Women's Club, they would say, I'll have 5 books, one for my mother-in-law, one for my best friend, my niece, etc. And then they said, we want to buy the spice box too. Why can't you sell the spice box? So again, a little bit of the entrepreneurship. I said, okay, great. So I started packing the spice boxes and the books. And, they say, when you commit yourself, then providence moves too. So all kinds of opportunities came out taking the book everywhere. And when I wrote my second book 10 years later, it was called Coriander Makes the Difference. By then, I'd really mastered the art of how do you sell books, how do you get attention. But with my first book, luck played a part too. So I knew Miss World then, very glamorous, and I knew one of the writers of the Times. And I told him that I'm teaching Miss World how to cook. Would you like to come and have a cookery lesson at my home? And he got very excited. He said, can I bring my photographer? And I said, of course you can. So he came along, and 4 days later in the Times was a big article. It said there, I could hardly stop my pakoras from igniting, cooking with Miss World, and in very small letters, and Pinky Lilani. And there was a big picture of him and Miss World. But he did write there that if you want a copy of Pinky's book, send in a check to this address. So in the first week, I got 500 checks. So my cleaning lady stopped cleaning and started packing the books. So, the adventure was great. And of course, then, I was very lucky to do several television programs. I cooked with Carluccio on Good Food Live. And cooking brings the best out in people. Everybody loves food. But the walk plays a huge part. By this time, I was also running team building days for some of the biggest companies in the UK. They would send their teams over to learn about leadership. But often, when I couldn't, they couldn't come here, they'd ask me to come and speak. And then I would say, can I bring my walk? So you may wonder, what is the alignment between leadership and cooking? Well, the walk has been everywhere. It's been everywhere from Radio 4, Women's Hour. When I went, when they interviewed me, I asked if I could bring my walk. And they had a fire marshal sitting next to me with a fire extinguisher in case I set the BBC alight. It's been to every big company from Ernst and Young, Aviva, all the banks. It's been to the Bank of England in 2019. I was invited to speak there on leadership, and I said, "Can I bring my walk?" And just out of interest, the next outing is going to have, as soon as lockdown is raised up, is actually to the Liverpool Football Club, because they're one of the supporters of what I do in another part of my life. And I know that they said, "Would you come with the walk and to watch a match and sit in the box and have lunch?" And I didn't want to tell them I don't know anything about football, but I've got 20 young men who've signed up to drive me to Liverpool, so I'm not going to say no to that. So the walk is an amazing way to get round. And the other place the walk has also been to is to Oxford and Cambridge and London Business School. So there's a lovely story of when my son 10 years ago, and Farid knows my son, that's how he said, "I want to go and do an MBA at Oxford." And I said, he said, "I'm going to have a look at the side business school." And I said, "I'm coming with you." And he said, "Mom, I'm 27 years old." And I said, "I don't care, I'm coming." So he goes round the side business school, and I actually go inside the office and tell them, "What do you do for women?" And they kind of looked at me and said, "Who's this middle-aged Indian woman asking us what we do?" And so anyway, I told them what I did. And he got in, which I was delighted. And I get a call from them saying, would I come and give the keynote address on the first day of term to the women and women's alumni of that MBA class? And I was hugely excited. Obviously, it's always a dream to go and speak at Oxford. And I actually said, "Can I bring my walk in so that I can, kind of curry some more favors?" Sorry about the pun. But I told Rishad, I said, "Don't tell anyone your mom's giving the speech in the evening, because if I make a mess, nobody will ever date you." Well, obviously, I think I must have got it right, because one of the women who was there has actually married him just now. And now I'm an associate fellow at Oxford University. So the journey with the walk has been amazing. But the other big part of my life is the empowerment of women. So in 1999, I really wanted to do something for women, because I felt Asian women were always seen to be sitting at home and frying onion bhajiyas, and that no way that's what they do. So decided to set up the Asian Women of Achievement Awards. And I remember that I didn't know how we'd get nominations, and Tony Blair was Prime Minister, and everybody said you should invite his wife to come to the awards. So I rang up number 10 and said, "Would Mrs. Blair like to come to the awards?" And surprisingly, they said yes. And they say the only thing you get for without asking in life is an infectious disease. Everything else you have to ask for. So I asked the next question. I said, "Will she wear an Indian outfit?" And they said, "She doesn't have any. Would you like to bring some to Downing Street, and maybe she can wear one of them?" So I went very excitedly with 4 outfits to Downing Street, and she wore one of them. She came to our award. She loved it. And the awards have grown. We're actually in our 22nd year. We've discovered amazing talent. Of course, we've got people like Mishal Hussain and Mira Sayal and Riz Latif, Asma Khan. They're all part of our alumni. So our network is vibrant, but there's some people that you have never heard of, which is what is exciting for me. There's Annie Zaidi, who's a woman who wears a hijab, who is a football coach. There's Emily Benn, who's the youngest person ever to be chosen to stand for Parliament. There's Vicky Trudell, who's one of our main high commissioners from the Foreign Office. So there's some amazing talent that we've discovered. But more than that, the awards were, they're lovely. So many of you have been there, but we've had super support from so many people, from the royal family to prime ministers. But really, the stars are the amazing stories we hear every single time. So I went on then to set up the Women of the Future program because I want to do something for young women of every background. So I called it the Women of the Future Awards, and for women under 35 from every background. And again, the stories were absolutely heartening. Our alumni include Liv Garfield, who's the youngest CEO of a FTSE 100 company. She won our award in 2006. She's CEO of Severn Trent. Catherine Sargent, who's the only woman tailor on Savile Row. There's Cressy Westling, who took old hose pipes from the fire brigade and made them into designer handbag. Sarah Davies, the youngest dragon, is won our award 2 years ago. And this year we had the most amazing winner, a young girl called Scarlett Westbrook. She has flat, she's 16 years old, and she got she was the youngest person in the world at the age of 13 to get an A level in government studies. So 3 weeks ago, when we had our award, we had a breakout room with the Countess of Wessex, who is our global ambassador. And I told this young girl with her plaid, she's so cute, would you like to say something to the Countess? And I thought maybe she'll be quite shy. She just launched into the sustainability manifesto she's writing as a student for the government. So we have these amazing people who are part of our, but what I've tried to build is a community and is powered by kindness. So, the strap line that we have is where kindness and connections are forever. And when I say community, we are still in touch with people who won our award in 1999. And I think that is what is drives me really. But with the awards, I found I wanted to do other things. So we set up a network for women, which is sponsored by Fidelity. We have a school program, which is sponsored by Lloyd's. And then I wanted to do what I thought was a mini British version of Davos for emerging women leaders. So I went to the Foreign Office and asked them if they would partner with us, and also the Great Campaign. And so every year we host a week of women where we have delegates from around the world coming for a summit and for the awards. But I wanted to do a quintessentially British experience for them. So we do a whole week of events. So we've been, an event at the Foreign Office, at Burberry, at Buckingham Palace, at City of London. And so we've really grown that. But we've really gone global now. So 4 years ago, I took a delegation of business women to Malaysia. And everybody said, why don't you bring the awards to Southeast Asia? I thought, that's cool. They say when you commit yourself, then Providence moves too. And within a year, we hosted our first event in Singapore with 11 Southeast Asian countries coming together. The stories are equally impressive. In fact, today I was so excited because one of our winners from Malaysia last year, Heidi Kwa, who does work on refugees, she actually had a conversation with the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge today and was all over. So very, very proud of our winners. And you say, how do you sustain a global program while we've not been able to be there? For the last year, all the British High Commissioners and Ambassadors are hosting events for us at their residence. So they're holding up the flag for us and getting nominations. So again, it goes back to kindness. So we've now got these global programs, but at the heart of everything I do is said is kindness. So in 2018, I set up the first kindness and leadership list. We wanted the list of 50 kind leaders because I think, when leaders are kind, they go from being successful to being significant. And I think, the legacy that we want to leave, all of us want to leave a legacy. You don't just want to have been a little occurrence in the world and you're gone. And so we published the first list. The Financial Times are my media partners. And on the first time we did it, on World Kindness Day, which is November 13th, we actually opened the London stock market with our brand everywhere with the list published. And we have amazing people on the list, from the CEO of Unilever, but Jurgen Klopp was on the list. And that's how the Liverpool Football Club has got really involved with us. So kindness really lies at the heart of everything I've done. I have to say, I'm incredibly a novice at sharing the screen, but I'm going to try to share the screen just now. And it will, okay. One of the theories that I've really enjoyed putting together is something called the 7 Qs of success. I think in all the journeys, I've realized that you learn so much. And it was Adam Grant. He said, if knowledge is power, then knowing what you don't know is wisdom. And I think for me, that's been important, learning what I don't know and trying to improve. Now, the seven Qs of success, I'm mentioning it because I think every time I give a talk, I want to share something, some of the stories, but I also want to share some learning. And I gave a talk to South London Khane about the seven Qs, and it's all about your IQ, your EQ, your communication quotient, the meaning quotient, the passion you have. And I think those are really important things that we can improve. But my favorite Q is the LQ, is the likability quotient. You know, we meet some people who we just innately like. And when we look at why we like them, it's because we like their integrity, we trust them, they're warm, they're passionate. You know, you meet people and you shake their hands, and sometimes they're so limp, they have no passion for anything. And I always call them chicken curry without any masala. So I'm looking for people who have that warmth, who exude belief. And, you know, one of the things is a lovely story of when Churchill's mother apparently went out with Disraeli and Gladstone when they were both standing for election many, many years ago. And the media heard about that and actually asked her, well, what did you think of Gladstone? And she said, you know, when I was with Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest man in the world. But when I was with Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest woman in the world. So he really listened to her. He made her feel important. And he won the election. Now, one of the things that I love to do is whenever we have all these women, I'm always asking for things from people. And I never feel bad because it's not for myself. I really want to shine a light on women, give them a platform. I know that just by one opportunity, it can change their trajectory. So we've been very lucky when Theresa May, because she's been a very long-standing supporter, said, "Would you like to come to Downing Street and with some of your women?" I took 40 women to Downing Street, and we had what I didn't know was actually, you can see her greeting me. And I did that was on Instagram from the Downing Street account, like in 1 hour. And so, you know, all these women, we gave them opportunities to go there. And here you can see Jurgen Klopp holding his trophy, which is amazing for us because it got us a lot of Twitter followers. So I think the company you keep is really important. And then I just want to show you one more picture because I've had so many amazing opportunities and credit other people like Sadiq Khan. I'm a deputy lieutenant for London, so that's with Prince William and then with Michelle Obama. But in the journey, you often, you know, there's so much you learn, and part of that is actually seeing how you can carry on making that difference. And I think we can all make a difference. There's a wonderful story when people say, what can I do to make a difference because I don't have money? And I think that's why kindness is important because kindness gives us all power. We can all be kind. And I always say when kindness is the currency, we are all millionaires and we can all choose to be kind because nobody can stop us from being kind. And this lovely story of in America, you know how they have baggers in a grocery store where somebody's standing and packing up all your stuff. And one day in Safeway, this woman came in and she got everyone together and said, "We want everyone to see how they can make a difference." And there was a young Down syndrome boy who used to just do the bagging. And he said, "How can I make a difference?" So he went away and they were told, "Go away and think of something and come back in 3 days and start it." He thought he would do a thought for the day. So he went home and he said if he didn't have a thought for the day, he would actually take somebody else's thoughts. And so he would print them all out, cut them up, put a little smiley, sign his name, and put them into the bags when he was packing them. And one day, after he started doing that, the store manager came out and found the line where he was really long and the other lines were really short. And he went ballistic and said, "Why don't you all move?" And everybody said, "We have come for the thought for the day." Normally, I used to come, they said, maybe once a week, but now I come 3 times. So we can actually make a difference in a very, very big way. And I know that I'm conscious of time, but I would like to really, in a way, draw to a close that we can all actually make a huge difference. And, you know, there are times in life when your light goes out and it's somebody who blows it into flame. And while it sounds really nice that I've done all this, there have been times when I've totally been flawed. About 3 years ago, when we were going to Buckingham Palace, when we were hosting an event there for our Week of Women, we were allowed to take our cars in. And I was with three American guests who'd come. And when you go to the gates, there are all these people waiting outside, seeing who's going in. And they told me, can you put your bonnet, open your boot and bonnet? And what I'd forgotten was, like the previous day, I'd filled my boot with a whole lot of rubbish, which I was meant to take to the dump. And actually, I'd forgotten to take it to the dump. So we get to Buckingham Palace and they say, open your boot. And they have to take all my rubbish out from the boot to look and see whether, and all these people outside thinking, who is this dork who's bringing her rubbish to Buckingham Palace? So there are times when you feel you're swanning in somewhere where things really, really just don't go the way you thought they would. So, I mean, for me, really, it is four things I'd like to leave you with. Be curious, keep learning something. Think of when was the last time you did something for the first time. I think as we get older, we stop learning. You must keep learning. So be curious. Be kind and be courageous, because courage is absolutely vital. It's only if we take those risks. And for me, I've never been afraid of failure. When I don't succeed at something, I just think that's a way of not doing it. And also pursue what you really love, because I think that's where the joy of life comes. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, they all talk about, if you really believe and have passion for something, that's where you can make a difference. And so our journey continues. I have hoped to do 50 Rising Stars in ESG, a global program. We're hoping to do a Pan-Asia Pacific Summit. We're hoping to do a global kindness list. And they say all kinds of people keep opening doors for me. Sometimes in Islam, we often say it's good to give when asked, but better to give unasked through understanding. And one thing that Hasmam always tells us is associate yourself with good, really good brands, go to the best colleges. And I've really stuck to that. So we're so lucky. So starting next week, CNBC are doing 200 advertisements for us of 30 seconds. And so it's good brands like that, because your integrity and your reputation is what people will remember you by. So thank you, Fareen, and I'll be very, very happy to take some questions and hopefully have some engagement. And thank you so much for all those who've come. I thought we may not have anybody here with, building up to Harry and Meghan. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so inspirational, and you're such a great speaker. We could really listen to you for far, far longer. We have had some wonderful comments in the chat, which I will share with you after this session. One question that we have is, how have you overcome the setbacks of last year during the pandemic?
I love that question. That's a brilliant question. I think I was totally devastated because my whole business is run around big events. So we have 600 people coming to the Hilton, traveling to Singapore, doing all those kind of things. And I think the first 2 months I decided, for me, I'm a people's person. I love hearing stories. And so for the first couple of months, all I did was keep ringing up. Our network is big, so I have amazing people that I can ring up. And I was talking to everybody else. That helped to keep me grounded, because I think when you're hearing about other people, it helps you to put things into perspective. But also, Fareen, so important has been the kindness. I mean, our sponsors are really amazing, from Coca-Cola to Visa Europe and people like that. And all of them stuck by me. And I remember the CEO of Fidelity, I was talking to her, and she said, I hope you're all right, because we are an SME, really, even. And I said, yes, we're fine. And next day, her chief of staff rings me up to say, Pinky, I know we don't owe you any sponsorship money till next year, but if you need something, we will give it now. So somebody at that level taking the time. So I think what kept me motivated is keeping on finding out other people's stories and seeing how we can inspire them. And Fareen, we delivered every single event. Last year, we managed to deliver everything. And some of it has been quite clever. So we have the Google guy in Singapore, and there's an amazing, well-known person called Suki Singapora, who is the first burlesque artist from Singapore. I'll tell you the story because she's very glamorous, and she entered our Asian Women of Achievement Awards about 7 years ago. And I must confess, I said, oh, that's sounds really interesting. She was shortlisted, but I had no idea what burlesque was. And then when I read about it, I said, oh my God, is it risque? Is it going to bring us into disrepute? But she actually is very glamorous. She's wonderful. And she was trying to make burlesque legal in Singapore. And I took all these 40 women to Buckingham Palace because from our shortlist, because the master of the household wanted to meet them. She was very clever. She came in a big car, her PR people put a red carpet out and took a picture of her going inside Buckingham Palace. And she told me 2 years later, she used that to actually lobby the Singapore government. She said, Pinky, you helped me to make burlesque legal in Singapore. So now she's on this amazing Netflix drama called Singapore Social. And everybody in Singapore was talking it. I was talking to the vice president of Google there, and I said, Suki Singapore is coming to our event because she had, and he immediately agreed to sponsor it. So suddenly, it's amazing what you put together, and it's that creativity. So at the event, we had Suki Singapore, Jimmy Choo, and the head of WorldPay. And I think they all enjoyed being photographed together. So sometimes it's luck getting this together, and I love that. That's the masala.
What would you recommend to someone who wants to write a book but doesn't know where to start?
I think, it depends. You have to choose your subject. You have to know what you want to write about. And once you know what you want to write about, everything flows. Talk to people. I always find there's a theory called the strength of weak ties. I don't know how many of you know. It's a paper written by Mark Granovetter at Stanford, where he says when you're looking for new ideas and new business, go to your weak ties, don't go to your strong ties, because we all have strong ties. We normally go to for ideas, but if you want new ideas, so I tell this person, think of what you really want, talk to a few people, get clarification, because once you have that, then you're going to let things will really, really flow. And one more thing, and I think this is very important for me, it's, doing all the different things that I've really enjoyed doing, I think we have to be careful not to live in our own echo chambers. There's a real danger that we all live in our own echo chambers, just people like ourselves. And the new ideas really come from people very different to you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So another question, which female leaders, past and present, would you like to share a chicken curry with masala, of course?
Well, my favorite heroine is Rosa Parks, and that goes back to the civil rights movement. Nothing makes me more emotive than thinking of Rosa Parks taking her seat on that bus and not moving because she was tired. So I think definitely it would be. And the other person who's always inspiring for me is Elif Shafak, who's a great friend and a great, just what I love about, and when I talked about the likability quotient, I spoke about what are the traits we like about people. And one of the biggest traits is humility. We love people who don't take themselves too seriously. And somebody like Elif is so humble in spite of being so cerebral. I always feel every single time she talks, I'm inspired. She talks about not letting the pessimism of the mind take over from the optimism of the heart. And I think, those are very profound words, and I love people like that. And I never say no to anything. So the American Embassy has started a new book club, and they asked me to join. And I joined last week, and it was lovely. We were speaking about this book called The Warmth of Other Suns, and it was a real tome. But it's very important to do new things and to be in new circles of influence. So that's my tip to them. Is that really people want to make new connections, discover new hills.
Absolutely, such inspirational women. Okay, what is your biggest achievement?
What is my
biggest achievement?
I know you don't think, but I think really my two sons, and the way they behave are for me. I know that sounds absolutely, but I think just really setting up a platform for women. And, when you think I've just started as an individual, when I was in the council and I would bring somebody up and say, I'm calling from the Council of His Highness the Arab Khan, nobody would ever say no because, he was held in such. When you're doing it as an individual, it's much more difficult. And so I think, that is what we must keep in mind. So I think in terms of achievement, is being able to get some amazing, amazing players. So I mean, one of my other favorite people is Miriam Clegg, who my husband was Nick Clegg. And Miriam has been a huge supporter and really inspirational person. And I think also, you know, when you reach out, I still remember the time when Nick Clegg was Deputy Prime Minister and they invited my husband and myself to Chevening for dinner. And there were just 10 people. And the first thing Nick told me, he said, Pinky, I want to take you to the kitchen because I know you like to cook. And I would go into this kitchen at Chevening, and it wasn't very impressive. But, you know, I think, you know, these old houses have kitchen, but I love the idea of somebody who's Deputy Prime Minister yet was thinking of what I would enjoy. And so, you know, those kind of things always remain with you. So when I talk about what's my great achievement, just meeting the most amazing people and bringing them together, I think for me, that's number one.
And I know your boys very, very well, and they are a true asset to you. So that is a great achievement that you have done. So we have had a question, and that is, what are you good at cooking now? And what is your favorite dish?
Oh gosh, I never cook. I would never eat spicy Bombay potatoes. I've cooked it too often. But no, I cook different things every day. Recently, my favorite dish has been making lamb shank. And so I cook every single day. Every single day I make fresh food. That's very important to me. And I cook anything really, but very simple. Nothing that has four stages. If you have to make a potato chop, I will not make it because you have to do the mince and then the potatoes, then you fry it. That's not for me. It's as simple as it can. Recently, gnocchi has become a great favorite of mine. So I make gnocchi with basil, tomato, and garlic, and it's absolutely to die for. It's great fun. And I think, you know, coriander is my favorite herb. So my second book was called Coriander Makes the Difference. And then I remember when I was publicizing that book, I was invited, as I told you, everywhere. And Harrods invited me to come and give a talk there. And somebody actually turns up, a journalist there, and says, I hate coriander. And then you're kind of selling this book based on coriander. He said, any use buying your book? And I thought to myself, how do I sweet talk him? And I said, well, you can do without it, you know, because apparently some people's taste buds make coriander taste like soap. So they don't like coriander. But I wouldn't trust anybody who doesn't like coriander. I didn't tell him that. I was very charming.
I wouldn't trust anyone who doesn't like coriander either. So I'm with you there.
Or garlic.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've had a few similar questions, but all based around the same theme. Is what advice would you give to any young parents raising girls in the world of today? What advice do you give to women with young children who struggle to realize their dreams?
I think one of the first thing is let them believe they can do anything. So, you know, Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And really, we need to give them every opportunity. And self-belief and self-confidence are so important. When people ask me, what about the glass ceiling? Well, I never saw any ceilings. I just went in to do what I wanted to do. And I think no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So, you know, if we all think we're great, then we're going to do great things. And I think we have to treat our boys and girls the same way. They shouldn't, you know, we've had people who, astrophysicists, we've had footballers, and I think we really need to have those role models and make them accessible. So really to make them fearless, I think, you know, that courage and fearlessness is so vital. And also, you know, really to expose them, the more people they meet, the more they'll be inspired. And I think as parents, you need to do that. And I know so many parents who are struggling now with, you know, childcare, domestic chores, and trying to be the best version. I was shocked yesterday. A LinkedIn survey showed that 39% of mothers feel they're letting their children down, and 70% of women feel they have to reassess their career choices in the future because of the pandemic. And that is totally unacceptable.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. What inspiration have you drawn from your faith?
Oh, everything that I do lies at the heart. You know, everything I do is based around my faith. So, you know, I never do anything without actually praying to Allah to, help me on that journey. And the whole thing, I think I've been around for so long that, things go cyclically. You see people who are full of themselves and arrogant, and then it's gone. And so when you're in that position, you think it will always be there. And I think, people who have real grounded wisdom are those who really believe in, for me, those values of compassion. Everything that our faith really says is about kindness, compassion, treating others as you expect to be treated, giving more. The more you give, I found that kindness, and the minute you start doing things, has a huge domino effect. They say when we're kind, it releases oxytocins in our system. And if somebody sees somebody else being kind, they want to be kind. So I remember one time I thought I'd try this. So I went inside Sainsbury's, and this woman before me was struggling with she was unpacking her things, and there was a lot of them. So I told her, I said, while you're paying, you're moving the things, I will pack for you. So let me go. I know I'll unpack your trolley and you can pack it there. And I did that. And she said, oh, thank you so much. And the person behind me, then the minute I started unpacking, he said, why don't you pack and I'll do your trolley? So, that is the kind of stuff that we have to do.
Yes, absolutely.
And our faith really teaches us that. It's about, the whole thing is about, the people around you. We really need to make them the center of our world, and to believe in spirituality, to believe in goodness and prayer, really.
Yes, and just with one kind act, it's so easy to spread kindness. What was it like for you when you found out you were getting your OBE?
Well, that was quite exciting. I thought, that's really nice, and how wonderful it was, and it's always very, very exciting to go to the palace. But I had been to the palace quite a few times before that, because I knew the master of the household, and once he told me, he said, Pinky, you cook, will you come to the palace and teach the royal chef and his team some Indian food so we can integrate some of that? And I actually remember going to the palace with my wok and going into the kitchen and teaching them a few spicy dishes. So when we went this time for my OBE, it was really nice to go to, the wonderful room and meet all these people. And no, it was very exciting. And I think my CBE was at Windsor Castle, and that was absolutely scary because I don't know why we didn't follow the directions. And they called me up on the phone and said, where are you? The ceremony is beginning in like 10 minutes, and we were lost, and we couldn't go to the main entrance. So I got there a total mess. So it wasn't that much fun actually going there, but once it was over, it was wonderful.
So we've had one comment, keep talking, Pinky. Nobody is bothered about Harry and Meghan's program. We would rather just listen to you.
Oh, I'm sure everybody's bothered about their cup of tea that needs to be warmed up, and some samosas that we need to be eating. But no, I'd really like to tell everyone that I'm there for you. I'm there for the Jamaat. So if there's any way I can ever help, I answer all my emails and my WhatsApp. And I love today I spoke at a big national health conference. I spoke at the Asian Women's Resource Center. I spoke to a sixth formers Northampton Girls' School and to a technology company. And they've all been sending me message. I will reply to anything. So please nominate for our awards. Nominate. We never get enough Ismailis to be nominated for our award, for our kindness list. So, I'd love you all to be part of that journey.
Thank you, Pinky. You are an inspiration to all women and men. Our final question is, what's next for you?
Well, as I said, we really want to do this 50 Rising Stars in ESG. I know about 3 months ago, somebody told me ESG is the big thing. I didn't even know what ESG meant. So I started researching it and realized that is what every big company is looking at. It's to do with the environment, sustainability, and governance. So I really want to do that. I want to make our programs truly global. And so we get more women, because the dynamics of when you meet people who are very different to yourself, that's where the magic of life takes place. And so I really want to, for us to be people where CEOs will meet people who are just beginning their journey, sixth formers. There's one girl called Joanna Baptista at Oxford, and she won our award 4 years ago. And she set up 4 companies by the time she was 17. And we actually gave her an opportunity to go to America with the State Department because they came to us asking, and it's changed her life. So I really want that global element, and really to be truly making a difference. So that's my dream, and I would love at some stage to have a couple of people cooking my meals for me and driving me around. My dream in my next life, I need a chauffeur. I hate driving, so my dream is to get a chauffeur, and that'll be in my next life.
Wonderful. I think we all need a chauffeur. I hate driving as well. Thank you so much for taking your time out to be with us here today and sharing your stories. You are an inspiration to all of us. We have no idea how you remember all of your stories and how you remember all these names, and you remember so many things. So it's truly wonderful to have you and for you to share your stories with us. Before I close the session, Pinky, is there any last words, inspirational words you would like to share with everyone?
Really going back to Rumi, where he said, yesterday I thought I was wise and I could change. I thought I was clever and I could change the world. Today I'm wise. I know I can only change myself. And Aristotle again, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. And I think that's what we should all aspire to, because that is where we differentiate ourselves. Last thing is, think about, one very quick thing is, we talk about brand values. We talk when we're buying Dove soap, we know what we get. I think it's very important as people to know what you stand for. What is your brand? How do people remember you? And so I think it's something we need to think very carefully. I don't think people give it enough thought. So you should have a mantra. You should really know what you stand for so it's recognizable. And that will actually set you apart and keep you flying. And so I wish everybody an amazing journey in life. And we're so lucky to belong to a Jamaat that's so supportive. And we know they will do everything to help us. And I pay tribute to all the amazing women in the Jamaat who've been such great friends of mine and made me what I am. So I really stand on their shoulders. Thank you so much.